Okay.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Peg.
Sister Pat Leonard, Pat, or formerly known during your, well, you're still a nun, but
Thank
your
you.
religious name, Marjorie.
Yeah, Mary Marjorie.
Mary Marjorie.
I had to have Mary.
I don't think we've had another Marjorie as a religious name,
I think
a nun name before.
they-
Aren't you the only one?
As far as I know, because when I asked for it, there was some question. But
A
then
question, because Marjorie wasn't a saint?
I don't know what it was, but
Uh-huh.
they.
Well, that's unique. I take it was your
It's my mother's name.
Your mother's name, Marjorie.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, sometimes people don't know you by Pat Leonard. They don't know you by Marjorie, or vice versa, Mary Marjorie, because you were teaching them or whatever when you
Oh,
had
yeah.
the nun name.
Right, and the nun name. And that probably ended in. I think that ended in when I was at Blessed Sacrament, Toledo. It was when I moved. I was sent
Okay.
to Holy Name Gulfport.
Okay,
Then
good.
we could go back.
Now we got that straight. But that's why it's important that we give you both titles. So this is your life,
Okay.
Adrian Dominican Sisters, Sister Story, and you have 30 minutes to get through your life thus far.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, we're just going to let you begin, Pat, and tell us what you want about your early days, where you went to school, you know, high school, how you got to us.
Okay. Well, I was born in Miami Beach, Florida, and the reason, I think my father was in the Navy after World War II, and then he went back to the police department in Miami Beach. And so my mother and he had an apartment, and that's where the three of us, myself, the oldest, and my brother Sam was next, and then my brother Jim.
Okay.
So then when the family probably outgrew that apartment, we moved
In Miami Beach.
in Miami Beach. Then we
Okay.
moved across the water.
Across
to
the
Miami.
causeway.
The causeway.
I used to teach at St. Pat, so I kind of
Biscayne Causeway, I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we stayed in a couple places until the home that I knew the most in Miami, North Miami, was built. And then in first grade, we didn't go to kindergarten, so I went to first grade at St. Rose in Miami Shores.
Oh, St. Rose de Lima. Okay.
And then when St. James was built, then my brother and I went to St. James in Miami.
Okay, right.
And that's where I met the Adrians in St. Rose, but I knew them best.
Do you remember who was at St. Rose at the time?
I'm not sure if it was Kathleen Marie Berry, who was the principal. I can't remember for sure.
Okay.
My first grade teacher was Harriet Marie, but I think she's deceased.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I went to St. James, and I had Sarah Patrick, but I believe she's left. Yeah.
Sarah Patrick.
Yeah, I don't. Of course,
Yeah.
we didn't know last name. And then Immaculate was the principal, and after she finished, Jean Burns came, and became principal. By that time, I was in high school, and I went to Notre Dame Academy in Miami, and they were run by the IHMs.
Okay.
From Pennsylvania.
Okay. Okay.
But it's probably, I was thinking about religious life only because I had Mary Schmagner as a fifth grade teacher.
Wonderful.
And she, she was so easygoing, fun, made schoolwork fun. And then, but Jean Burns and the sisters at St. James, they're the ones who helped me get ready to enter.
So they were the ones that perhaps were mentored you in some way.
Yeah.
Maybe by example, if you didn't. Were you the type of student that wanted to always help the sister after school?
Yes.
And help them with the boards and help them with stuff like that?
Yeah, I was. And my father was not for me entering. My mother, she was okay. She didn't know she was a convert. She didn't know what these nuns are.
Okay.
So she was okay. But I had a little convincing of my father. But he finally
I was going to say,
gave in.
Or else you said, so what, I'm going.
That's probably that. yeah, he and I had our run-ins.
Yeah, well, that's, I can certainly see with his only daughter.
Yeah.
That's another special thing. And she's going off.
Yeah.
Leaves his 2 sons.
He was going to buy me a car that would entice me to stay home. I said, no, the car's not going to work, Dad.
Oh, so you were letting go before you had to let go.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
All right. So who was what we called in those days your sponsor? Who kind of helped you get to
Well, the
to
one
Adrian?
who was my 8th grade teacher, Florence Treese.
Yes.
She was the one who claimed me. Gene Burns would always say, she claimed you.
Oh, cute. Cute.
But Gene says, I'm not into all that. But Gene really was the one who helped a lot.
Oh, I know. To get a postulant from the parish was something special. And
Was
you've
it?
heard stories that there were some convents who kept their Christmas trees up way into February and March, and they wouldn't take it down till they got a postulant.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if they got something special for sending someone in, but
Yeah.
that was...
So then I entered in September 8th, 1964, and went through the novitiate.
Now you had, if I recall correctly, that crowd was very large.
Yes.
That means the crowd being all the women that you entered with.
Yeah. Now, you know, some of us say there was 125
Yeah.
in the crowd.
And the next day there were 100.
24. Right.
124.
And so I think the crowd ahead of us, and I'm not sure, we had a year-long postulancy, and then we had a novitiate.
Right.
And then most of us stayed in for the year for junior aid.
Okay.
And the older part of the crowd went on mission. But they were brought in a couple times during the year for ongoing formation in those days, I think.
So being such a large crowd, it was a challenge to get
I'm
to know each
sure.
other, especially when you had to keep silent so often.
Yeah, who awaited it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you went, where's the first place that you were missioned to?
Blessed Sacrament in
Okay.
Toledo. And I was there for 2 years.
Okay.
And
How was that experience?
There were 17 of us. I
That's
was
big.
teaching 3rd grade, and Jane Payette was the principal.
I thought she
and
was in your
superior.
life someplace.
Yeah, she was my one and only superior, and because when I got sent to Florida, Pat Caulfield had been, named principal and superior of Holy Name, but then they were told they had to resign, and that's when the coordinators started.
Coordinated. Now, that's up near Petersburg area,
Yes,
Gulfport.
a
Where
little
is
bit
it?
south of St. Petersburg, probably about 20 blocks.
Yes.
We were
Okay.
20 blocks away from St. Jude in St. Petersburg. So
You could walk there. Not
back in those days, Pat and I rode a bike up there.
Oh, good.
Yes. Yeah. And
So she was the principal.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and
And you were there for a while?
I was there for 4 years, and then, well, the pastor, he and I had some disagreements about wearing the habit, because we were coming out of the habit, and he. So I said to Pat. Pat says to him, "If you don't want her here, I'm going also." So Catherine McKillop was the principal at St. Jude's, so she hired both Pat and I, and we moved up there. And I taught phys ed to
Oh, okay.
grades 5th through 8th, and I coached all the after-school sports.
And how was that for you? Were you interested in that?
Oh, I loved it, yes.
Did
And
you
I-
do sports in grade school, high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Volleyball, basketball.
Oh,
all,
okay.
you
That's
know.
an important part of your life.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's sports. That's right. And feeling the feeling
Repercussions.
repercussions.
From, yeah.
And I stayed at St. Jude's for about 6 years, and then I thought it was time to move on. So Madeline, Sophie, and Eileen Sullivan heard that I was looking for a new place, so they asked me if I would come over to Rosarian And so I was assistant dean of resident students with Betsy Ross and Sandy Exley, the three of us. Betsy was in charge. And then I also taught religion, but I also was, the best part, I think, of the job was being the assistant dean, because being on night duty, you could be with the kids and talk and just be relaxed with them, and they'd tell you their stories.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Counseling.
I loved it.
Yeah.
And so then from there, I got a letter from Catherine de Klerk, in early, 1979, and she asked me if I considered working in the finance office, out of the clear blue. So
here you are in Florida.
Here I am in Florida.
You are now invited up to Adrian, Michigan to enjoy the winter months. And you're from Florida, which is even...
Yeah. So then I said, sure. But I said to her, I haven't had any accounting. So she said, that's all right. We can start that when you get up here. So I took 2 accounting classes.
Did you ever ask what was it that she was inspired to invite you?
Well, I never asked that, but I had the feeling.
You still have time.
That's true, actually, if she remembers. Then I think Joanne Wimmer came to Florida to talk about investments, and it sparked an interest in me to, learn more about it. So probably Joanne talked to Catherine, I don't know.
Got it, investments. Oh.
Yes, so then, so I was studying, and I was into the second semester of accounting, and Catherine de Klerk said to me, I think we need you in the finance office sooner. So I started in 1980 working in the finance office, and Loretta May was interning with Ann Guinan at that time. And so there began my 10 years of working in the finance office.
So you were there 10 years,
Yes.
Interesting.
I started out as doing accounts payable, and then Loretta must have asked the council if she could have an assistant, so she asked me if I would be the assistant treasurer.
Constantly called to leadership roles.
I know. But I think what, besides a great friendship with Loretta, was in her, I got the feeling from her that when she entrusted you with something, she would back you and support you. And as I said in my remembrance of her, she gave me the job of looking for the interest rates, $75,000 for $75,000 or $50,000. I said, what? Do I actually call the bank and ask them? She said, yes. So then she sat with me, I remember, and listened to me ask. So it was fine. The people at the banks were great. So
you had great mentors.
Yes, I did, yeah.
And once you knew what you were doing,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't seem to hesitate when you were called.
No.
You've been called into many different ministries. Is there one in particular that you were surprised at?
I think in the finance office, I had the feeling towards my time, I wanted to be more involved with the people who were poor.
Okay.
In those days, we didn't know marginated, but so for some reason, when I decided to move on from the finance office, Bob Doherty, the brother of Grace, called me and asked me, would I consider being finance director at St. Leonard's in Chicago? And I said,
maybe you could explain what St. Leonard's, for those that wouldn't be
St.
familiar.
Leonard's is a halfway house for men and women formerly incarcerated in the prison system in the state of Illinois.
So the men were at St. Leonard's and the women were at Grace House. Okay.
Yeah, Grace House wasn't in existence when I first got there, but that was one of the things Bob wanted to initiate, besides second stage housing. So
wonderful. That's still going, isn't it?
It's still going. Yes. So then during my tenure there, as I met with the men at that time, I wanted to learn their story too, and
See how important stories are?
I know. So then I said to Bob, would you mind if I went to school part-time in social work?
Okay.
So I did that in the evenings, and he was fine. So then I'd have to ask, for papers. I'd have to ask for some of the clients if I could interview them. And so I remember the first time sitting with a sex offender, and I was scared to death. But Bob just said, leave the door open, and which I did. And there were other people on the floor, on that second floor.
But still.
But to learn their stories, there were a couple that I interviewed that, just to hear their stories and their background, and it just touched you. And then, so I had real life stories to write papers about. And then, and one of my internships was Kathy.
That was part of your schooling.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And then Kathy Nolan was, when Grace House began, Kathy Nolan was working as a social worker at Grace House. And so when I needed an internship, I asked Kathy if I could do part of my internship with her, and she said fine. So she would give me clients to work with, and then together we did group work at Grace House. So then,
when you were talking about, the interviewing the men and women, the men, because you were at Leonard's house, I was thinking of that quote from Valerie's book, there are no strangers.
Yes.
Only friends we've not met
yet.
Yes. Of course, we didn't have those sayings, but that's very comforting. Okay, sorry, go on.
Right. So, I got more comfortable with it, and then when Bob established St. Andrew's Court, which was the second stage housing, we call SROs, and he needed a director of social services. So I had my degree, so I went over there, and I worked there for a couple years, and so I met with the formerly incarcerated men in that building, and I met with them monthly to go through goals and what were they planning to do while they were there, and about work and counseling and stuff like that. So I did that, and then that's when I was diagnosed with cancer. So then I went through chemo and radiation there, but then it gets you tired. So I asked Bob if I could resign. So I took a couple months off, and then I was anxious. I never sit around. I need to do something. So Francis Patrick was working in the diocesan education office in Chicago. So the high school coordinator needed a support staff. So I worked there for about 6 months, but constantly looking. And then I found a job at Maria High School on the south side. And so I contacted the principal, and Noreen Burke was there at that time. And so I interviewed, and I got the job, and I was going to be high school counselor and social worker.
And then just to move on a little bit, from that, that brought you into a position on campus, a congregation position.
Director of formation.
Yes.
And the part
constantly, Pat Leonard, let's invite her. Pat Leonard, let's invite her.
So that was, I loved being the one-on-one with the women. Ziamara, Emmy, and Sharon Bossler were the ones. Sharon and Emmy were transferring, and Ziamara was a novice when I arrived. And so I loved working with them and talking with them. And
I can see why.
Yes. And so from there, I only spent 2 years because my mother had alerted me that my brother was not well, my younger brother. So I had to tell Attracta I have to leave. And so, so I didn't want to go down to Florida without having a position. So Corinne Sanders alerted me to St. Anne Place, where they needed a social worker, and so
St. Anne Place was
in
a
West Palm, it's
facility.
a homeless
So you
outreach center.
assisted there.
Yes, I worked with. I mainly was hired to help coordinate the homeless, because in West Palm they had this program for people of low income where they could get on health care. So I mainly helped them get there, and I went to doctor's appointments, and I met with them.
And how long were you in that ministry? Because that was just before you
10.
came up here.
10
years, okay.
Yeah,
So then you decided to come up here.
right.
Come up here meaning you came back to Adrian.
Right. Well, before that, I had to deal
Yeah.
with my brother and
Right.
his death, and my cousin Irvin and his wife Gail helped me get through that, and attracted it with the financial assistance from the congregation, and so then my mother's.
That's right, your mother.
And I with her when I happened to be home when she fell and broke her hip, and then she went through rehab and assisted living, and with the help of Judy Rimby, I don't know what I'd do without Judy Rimby, we got through selling her house, which I had never sold a house before in my life.
So now you could go into real
I
estate.
know it. I'd have to have Judy right here.
Don't discount what you learned. Right, you can do it, yeah.
Yeah, so, and with the help of the finance office, Sarah,
Yeah.
and Loretta. Loretta and Phyllis even came down when my younger brother died to help me clean out his apartment. So I had a lot of support. And so that's, and then
You have
here.
had, as you listen, you've had many significant losses in the last few years of your friends,
Yeah.
your brother, your mother,
Yeah.
and but constantly the support and love from our
yes.
sisters,
Yes,
your friends.
very much
Yeah.
so, yeah.
So you were invited up here?
I have two friends in my crowd, Kathy and Pat, who are saying, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? And I said, well, number one, I'm not coming to Adrian and do nothing.
Welcome to Adrian, Pat.
Right. But so I contacted Joy, and she said, oh, yeah, plenty for you to do. And so, but Pat and Kathy did a lot they did, yeah. I had to find a place to live, and they found all the furniture, and they gave me a lot of help.
So you certainly have varied experiences, and as you look back at your life thus far, you've got a long way to live. Keep on living. Is there a scripture saying that you kept going back to, or that was very supportive and helpful to you during all these
I think
times?
When Carol Johannes was going to do the homily for Loretta, the first scripture reading that I came to was Emmaus. I think for me sometimes my friends are my companions, and support, and I think being with them, they helped me to see the God within me to give me the strength. Sometimes I'd call Loretta and say, I don't know how to do this, get me, and she said, you can do this, you can do this.
And she showed you, because once you got here,
yes,
she decided to make the trip to,
yes.
So,
but I was glad I was able to be with her
yes,
those last 3 months.
Your dear friends.
Yeah.
And you've been a dear friend to many people. What do you do for fun?
Well, now, Kathy Olds appeared on the scene, and so she's
got you out there walking.
Yeah, I was walking, but I arrived during freezing cold weather, so I bundled up and walked to the Oakwood Cemetery just to get exercise, get outside. But now with Kathy here, we walk every night. And if we don't walk to work, we do both, walk to work and that's yeah, that, and
That's how
I
you
like to
relax?
walk. I like to read.
What's your book? What are you reading now?
Well, Beverly book. I just finished Daniel Silva book. It was like 700 pages.
Oh my gosh!
But it was a mystery, and it kept me going during World War II. I love World War II. But Beverly just gave me the book by that Hillary Clinton wrote with Louise Penny.
Right.
I'm reading that one right now, and I like to put puzzles together.
Yeah.
And
So you keep active. You can't sit still.
no.
Because you had to, as soon as you got here, you had to get involved in something.
Yes. Yes.
So what happens if you sit still?
I
You
don't like to
it.
watch a lot of TV, but then reading, and then I got involved in kiosk when we were over at Maria when people had the co-workers had to check in, and then I helped with the sisters in Solarium 2 South, help with feeding.
That's right. That's right. It's a great ministry.
I really enjoy it.
I do too.
Yeah.
Although your floor is more hands-on, ours fourth is they're very independent.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be with our women.
Yeah, it's increasing more of the people who need to be fed.
Right. Now, as we bring this to a closure, before you get up and leave because you gotta, you don't want to sit still. Is there something that you feel you left out of your story? Certainly, it was very full and active, and listening to the Spirit. You're very obvious. You listened.
And I think the doors opened when there was never a lack of needs to be done, and I think my work in the finance office opened doors. I worked on PAB for I think
Many
at
years.
least 17 years, and just the involvement of the places that we invest in.
Yeah.
It's just remarkable. And then Madeline has a place in Illinois that she wants to go visit. So right after our assembly, the delegates have to stay for. So we're going to go down to, I think it's Piatone, and visit this place. Investment that we're involved in
So
right
you're
now.
you're varied. So you're like Katju, if we can. Where is she today? So I certainly am so glad you said yes to this invitation, Pat.
Oh,
because we do share. We have been given gifts by the Spirit, and we are responsible to share those gifts. And when you share yours, we're able to share ours. So it's kind of a mutuality. So you have been very gifted and very generous with every area that you have given back, and that's not why you do it, but it's very obvious.
Yeah.
That
and I have the energy and the desire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your relationship with God is very evident in all those that you meet.
Pray every morning.
Yes. So thank you ever so much. I finally got you.
You finally got me.
It was worth the persistence. So thank you again for saying yes.
Thank you.
Have a blessed day.
You're